we're continuing the discussion and practice of these three foundations of practice. And I have a few funny things to say about it to start. So first of all, these three foundations of practice, they come from the Zen tradition, which I think many of you know is kind of the root of my meditative practice. And I recently came to know through Peter that literally these same 3 weeks that we're doing these practices together, my Zen teacher back in Seattle is also giving talks on the three subjects. And so when I heard that, I was like, oh, I should have chosen different weeks. But on that note, I'll send links to those talks because if these have piqued your interest, you may want to hear it from somebody with more experience. This week is about great doubt, and it's very fitting, I think. It feels very fitting for me in my life right now. I think almost nobody knows this other than maybe Peter, Lisa, and Karen. But up until a few hours ago, I didn't think I was going to be able to make the session tonight. And I spent a few hours in the hospital last night, really just struggling with some odd tropical illnesses, perhaps. I'm doing okay now. I'm kind of up and down, but I'm very glad to be able to be here and to feel okay. But that, in a way, is just a reminder. I was texting a friend of mine and I was like, it's so odd to be faced with this really honest uncertainty about what's going to happen next. And we always, we hold on to some sense that we know what's going to happen next. And there's a healthy amount of that, of like planning for what's going to happen next and making sure that we're ready for what's likely to happen. But really what this foundation of practice is about is opening up to a larger reality that from another lens, we have no idea what's going to happen next. And just when we think we know, we're going to get surprised in some way, pleasant or unpleasant. So this part of our practice, this foundation of our practice, is really about both becoming comfortable with that larger unknown, which is a huge part of our reality, especially those of us living with diabetes, but really anybody just living life, living with unknowns. But not only becoming comfortable with something that is fundamentally uncomfortable to being human, also becoming really awed by it, to almost allow this uncertainty of what's going to happen next put a kind of sparkle in our eye, because everything becomes really magical when we don't take things so for granted. So with that, I'd love to just offer this quote that I deeply love, and it's not by a Zen practitioner, but you might have heard of this spiritual teacher. He lived primarily in India in the 20th century. His name is Krishnamurti. And he said, "It seems to me that the real problem is the mind itself, and not the problem which the mind has created and tries to solve. If the mind is petty, small, narrow, limited, however great and complex the problem may be, the mind approaches the problem in terms of its own pettiness." So what he's saying here really is, if our mind is small and if we're stuck in this sense of certainty, of knowing how it is and how it's going to be, and knowing or having a sense of certainty about what we know, really, then we won't be able to see what's right in front of us. And we won't have the creativity and openness to actually see the solutions that might lie ahead. Okay. So there. I don't want to talk too much about this because I feel like talking about doubt is kind of antithetical, but I will say a few more things to prepare us for a little bit of practice. We did the practice on great faith last week, and for me, that's an essential place to start. It's also a place that I've struggled with in my own practice and life. And I won't talk too much about that now. If you weren't there for last week, I definitely encourage you to listen to that or to listen to somebody else's talk on great faith. But now that we have found some sense of security or firmness in something larger than ourselves, which is really what faith is about, and not a blind faith, something that we can feel and relate to. Now that we have that, or we're walking with that, we can leave that place of comfort or security and introduce this idea of great doubt. And that great doubt, as I've started to talk about, both is and isn't what may immediately come to mind for you when you think of the word doubt. I have heard it said, and I really loved this explanation of great doubt, that great doubt is actually the antidote for all of our small doubts. And you can think of our small doubts as all of these anxieties and stressors and uncertainties that we have each day. And when we're at our best, there are little gnats buzzing around our ears, which I've become very familiar with down here in Brazil. And at our worst, they're like totally terrorizing us and a nightmare to live with all of these painful thoughts and fears and anxieties. And so what the great doubt is about is kind of drawing all of these into something much larger. And really, it's a question. And that question can come in the form of a number of different words. And it doesn't actually really matter what words formulate this question that we create as the great doubt. The one characteristic about whatever it is that we kind of put in front of us as the great doubt, the most important thing is that we can't answer it. There's no immediate answer for it. So some examples of what we might formulate as questions of the great doubt. It might be, what is this passing experience that I'm having? What is it? What's going on right now? You might just ask yourself that for a moment and see if you can feel that question. What is this experience I'm having? Who is the one that's asking the question? Is it me? What is me? What makes up me? Who am I in this moment? Who am I in another moment? So these larger kinds of questions that don't have some kind of solid answer are ways for us to open up to both the fact that we know a lot less than we often think we know, and the fact that there's something really wondrous about this also. It can open us up to new possibilities that we didn't recognize might be there. And the key is really just in asking, not in looking for an answer. And so with that in mind, oh yes, I also wanted to bring up, has anybody been watching the new Star Wars Obi-Wan series? Without getting into whether you like the series or don't like the series, one thing that probably most of you don't know is that I'm a little bit of a Star Wars nerd. And probably my favorite thing about it is that the Jedi are like totally these like profound meditator warriors. And I just think that's so cool. And they're always pulling out these really profound things. And I just earlier today watched the most recent episode, and there was a really beautiful quote that Obi-Wan finds written by another former Jedi, and I was like, that is totally also a way to speak about the great doubt. And what the writing says is, only with eyes closed can you truly see. There's a lot of different ways to understand that, but one way is only when we give up our sense of certainty and knowing what we're looking at can we actually look at things with clear eyes. Only when we start from scratch. And so with that, let's do a little practice and start from scratch. So I encourage everybody to find a comfortable way to sit right now. Something that's going to be supportive for some practice for the next, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes. And as you feel comfortable, you can let your eyes come to rest. Make any movements that help you feel settled in place, and get any little movements out before we sit still for a little while. Take a moment just to listen with your ears. And take a moment just to feel with every fiber of your body from head to toe. Doesn't matter what catches your attention. Just allowing yourself to feel with the whole body, every single fiber. As we often do, you might tune into the pull of gravity. It's pulling us all towards the core of the earth. You might just give a little more of your weight to the ground, allowing the center of the earth to pull you downwards. Letting the face soften with gravity, shoulders soften with gravity, the belly soften, hips soften. In this softened and heavy body, you might notice the coming and going of breath. When you notice it, just notice it as part of the body at large. Sometimes there's breath in the body, sometimes there's not breath in the body. notice thought patterns start to emerge. Maybe there are things from your day up till now. Maybe there are concerns about tomorrow. Maybe there are discomforts about the present moment. For the time being, as much as you're able, just setting these things aside, recognizing that they exist, knowing you'll come back to them, but setting them aside. On each exhale, I encourage you, if you find it useful, to either internally or externally say no. This no is both N-O, no, reminding us to remain in not knowing. And this no is K-N-O-W, no. That this experience is alive right now. And all of the answers to this great big question are right here. On the inhale, just noticing your inhale, your experience, and on the exhale, either internally or externally. No. Each time. Letting this no put up a barrier to anything that wants to carry your mind away. To anything that wants to give you a sense of certainty in this moment. No. each time repeating this no to yourself, letting the past become more slippery, less sticky to your mind. Any thought of the past just slips right off. Nowhere to latch onto. Continuing, let each no make thoughts of the future more slippery, just the same way, such that they have no place to latch onto. Continuing just with this one word and one breath at a time. Let each no carry away also thoughts of the present. Such that there's nowhere for thoughts of the past, future, or present to latch onto. They each just slip away as soon as they emerge. If you feel it's a good time, feel free to let go of this no and just sit in this moment. Completely slippery completely translucent, completely present. Letting go even of your judgment about how your practice is going or what should be happening. Enjoying just the last few moments of practice for yourself. Only with eyes closed can you truly see. As you feel ready, you can begin to bring your practice to a close over the next minute or two. Perhaps finding an appropriate way to close the practice with your mind. Maybe dedicating your ability to be in uncertainty or to be open to what's next to the many, many people who would benefit from it right now. Might begin to take in some larger breaths and bring the body back and make some small movements with your hands or feet and the rest of your body. And as feels appropriate, you can come back visually as well.